All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's broadcast of Tapp into the Truth. Glad to have you here. I am, of course, your ever so humble and mostly peaceful host, Tim Tapp. Should have a great show today, as I am scheduled to be joined. And, of course, we were scheduled last week. It didn't quite happen. I have assurances on the reschedule that we will, in fact, have Ken W. Good tonight. Of course, if you're a longtime listener, you remember Ken has visited us a few times before, but he's not exactly a regular reoccurring guest. He pops in whenever there's something he really feels like he needs to get out and talk about, and that's what we'll be doing tonight. For those of you who don't remember him, he is one of the leading voices on bail reform. He's a successful attorney. He's an author of what is essentially a lawyer's how-to guide on working bail. And he is, of course, a member of the board of directors of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. So he's got quite extensive background. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the show once again a board member with the Texas Professional Bondsmen. He is an extremely successful activist. He's looking to push for bail reform. We got a heck of a story behind our current visit. Ken, it's been way too long since your last visit. We really should get together a little more frequently, but welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Ken W. Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And it has been too long. I think I was supposed to be here a week ago, and then that was my fault. It was right before a weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and there was nothing that was going to remind me about 6:30 at night.
Well, I can't blame you for having your mind elsewhere. It's one of those weekends for a lot of us, especially if we have family members who paid that ultimate price in order for us to be able to breathe free. And it's something that way too many Americans kind of take for granted. But for those of us who kind of keep the focus where it ought to be, I can understand having your mind elsewhere by that point in the afternoon, even if you were just looking forward towards spending some time with family and friends to have those moments of observance. So I guess before we get started any further, how are you tonight?
I'm good. We're like 3 weeks away from my oldest daughter getting married, so things are at that hectic stage, but I think everything's going well. Excellent. So
congratulations to your daughter and the whole family, for that matter. But let's go ahead and get into the thick of the conversation. As I mentioned, of course, you spend a lot of time trying to help move not just the state of Texas, but the entire nation back towards some common sense policies when it comes to how we deal with law and order, and in particular, bonds. We have had a lot of jurisdictions across the country that seem to think that no bail is a good idea, when it really seems like the only time it's a good idea is if your purpose is to try to help streamline more crime to occur. We saw a really good example of this not too long ago involving electronic monitoring and no cash bail policies kind of merging together in Chicago. Back in April, we saw this repeat offender with multiple pending violent felonies end up ambushing two police officers. And while this sounds like an entire story and bad enough, it really doesn't end at that point.
No, I mean, this whole policy is about using, GPS monitoring is going to be okay. And so we can just release people, and then we can give them this GPS monitor, and that will keep us all safe. And I think we're learning very quickly that this is a placebo. It's not keeping us safe. I mean, we've got this example, but we have another one that's even more recent from Houston, Texas, where a guy was fixing to go on a murder trial for killing his pregnant wife. And so he decides, like at 5:30 in the afternoon on Friday, to cut off his GPS monitor, and that gives him a 3-day head start. And he goes to Canada, gets a fake passport from Belgium, and then flies to Italy. And that's where he currently is, where they found his passport to be phony. And then he claimed asylum because he was going on trial for murder in the United States. And so now the United States is having to work to get him back. And so, I don't think people realize, the courts don't work on the weekend. So the GPS monitoring company can report at 5:30 and Friday afternoon the guy cut his band off, but nobody else is going to see that until Monday morning.
Yeah. So are you starting to see signs that maybe some of these jurisdictions are kind of coming back to their senses and understanding that bail is intended not to be an unsurmountable thing, but it is intended as one of those stopgaps to try to keep the more violent people from being able to get out and to kind of drive the message home for the less violent folks that you don't want to get caught up in the system at all if you can help it.
Sure. And I think, one of the things that the argument that we're hearing the most of right now is, bail needs to be fair. We need to treat everybody the same. And that's actually just a cock and bull story, because bail was never intended to treat two people the same way, because, the crux of our criminal justice system is to put what pressure is needed on an individual to make them turn around and become a productive citizen. So what pressure you need and what pressure I need is going to be different. And when you have career criminals, or when you have people that have long criminal histories, they're going to need more pressure. But you see these jurisdictions that have adopted these policies where they just make a list of crimes, and if you're on that list, you're going to be treated exactly the same as everybody else, no matter how many times you commit that crime. It's kind of a charge-based release system. And in New York, where they originally passed that long list for almost all misdemeanors, they have now rolled that list back 3 times, where they've taken stuff off the list to give discretion back to the trial court judges. And still, crime is the number one issue in the governor's race that's going on right now. So, yes, you see jurisdictions turning around and rolling back, but you see the fight continuing in other jurisdictions. Look at Washington State, where the Supreme Court is looking at adopting new rules for fairness. And then you see California's Supreme Court just issued an opinion talking about you can never set bail at an amount that the defendant cannot afford. That's an argument that's been rejected by the Fifth Circuit. So there we have, this opinions that are being driven by politics, not by what's best for the criminal justice system.
Yeah. And when you say best for the criminal justice system, what you're really talking about is best for civilization.
Yeah.
Because we're not just talking about the system that's coming after you if you've been bad and then going to try to roll you up. We're literally talking about the actual levers that maintain law and order. It's not just about police on a beat. That's step one. But there has to be the follow through. And
bail is what assurance you're going to give that you're going to come back to answer the charges in your criminal case. And when there's nothing that even compares to the private industry, there's no alternative that compares, then you don't have an alternative, because everything else creates chaos. There's a reason for that. The private industry provides a lot of supervision and requires reporting. And if someone can't go to court, we go take them to court. And the rest of the types of release just relies on the defendant's promise. The defendant's going to do it. It's a pinky promise. And you know what? The statistics are showing that there's a humongous difference. When you have a less than 10% failure to appear rate on one, a 50, 60, 80% failure to appear rate on the others, you can see right away the impact that has on your criminal justice cases, because a case can't go forward without the defendant. You just have more and more cases put on hold. Your backlog will become bigger. And so there's this pressure on the courts to dismiss cases. And when you dismiss cases, criminals see that as a green light to commit more crime.
Yeah. And if we don't have bail in place, the green light gets hit a lot earlier. Of course, it's all anecdotal, but how many stories could either of us sit here and tell about folks that picked up by officers for committing a crime, released later because of no bail policies, and they're out committing the same crime or worse somewhere else, literally that same evening, maybe even just a couple of hours later, if even that long.
In Texas, for probably the majority of the state, even today, if you're charged with capital murder or murder, you're not getting out of jail. But in Houston, we went through this period of time where, some people were getting very low bonds, some were getting personal bonds, just simple release. And then they would go out and commit a second murder. And so I'm like, in Houston, you were getting one free murder before they would hold you. I mean, it's like a dog getting one free bite before they were considered dangerous. And so I think the legislature has gotten so mad and upset about it. I think they've changed that. And so I think Houston is starting to comply. But I'm not really sure that they still are completely.
It's so weird. This app shows that my credit score is pretty good, but I couldn't get the car loan.
Are you using myfico.com?
No, it's some other company.
Oh, you should get a MyFICO account instead. FICO scores are the ones used by 90% of lenders, and other credit scores can vary up to 100 points.
That would have been helpful yesterday.
Get the scores lenders use. Get the right FICO credit score for your credit goal, including your FICO scores used for mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. Visit myfico.com or download the MyFICO app to get started today.
You're confused about your credit score. One site has one number and another site something completely.
What? That can't be right.
It's okay. Forget everything except MyFICO. These free scores from other apps can differ by as much as 100 points from your FICO score that 90% of top lenders actually use when you apply for a credit card, personal loan, car loan, or mortgage. For the moments that matter, get the score that matters, your FICO score. Visit myfico.com and get started for free today.
Yeah, I think, and you've already kind of touched on it earlier, but I think where things have kind of gotten sideways is where all of a sudden the judicial system, our legal system, has stopped just calling balls and strikes, and they've started taking sides in the political matters too. And when we start doing everything, when everything has to be political, when we can't even get together and watch a ball game anymore without making it about, Donald Trump showed up at that team's stadium last week. How are we supposed to expect justice to come from the judicial system? I mean, I have never in my life seen so many instances of judges literally just setting the law aside in order to pick a side between the two. And it's almost become common practice in a lot of courts. That, of course, isn't what we're really talking about here. But I know as an attorney yourself, that has to be one of the most frustrating things going in, because no matter which side you normally fall on personally, politically, eventually that's going to come up and bite everybody.
I have a friend who is a chief deputy at the Pasadena Police Department, or he was at one time. And so they had a heinous crime being committed. And so he went to court and sat in the courtroom because he did not want that guy to get out on bond. And at the end of the hearing, the judge called him up to the bench and said, "I'm sorry, but my party wants these people released. And so I'm going to be releasing them." So it has nothing to do with, generally I say we should have more discretion being given to the judges because they're the ones that deal with criminals. But when you have politics get to such a level of, we don't care if there's more crime because of politics, well, then something's got to give.
Yeah. If you don't care if there's going to be more crime, then I can guarantee one thing: there's going to be more crime. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, I mean, other examples of what you just talked about. I mean, the New York Giants quarterback going into his second season had an opportunity to introduce the president, and so. I mean, he was thrilled to do it. It was a short introduction, and he's been attacked for doing it. And I think his team and him released a statement about it today. And I was like, I mean, you go, well, no, this is not all politics. This is only on one side, because the right does not care about somebody wanting to introduce the president. And they think of it as, it's the president. Congratulations. But that's not true on the opposite side anymore. That's one of the way they hold people in line. And they scare people off from running for election on the right is they attack you and they attack you nonstop. And here's a young kid who got attacked for just having the honor of introducing the president of the United States, which he considered it to be an honor. And, that's been going on for a while. Can you imagine someone being attacked for introducing Barack Obama? No, I can't. And if you did attack them, you would have been attacked for being, a racist. But that's where we are today.
Yeah. Another great example of that too, something a lot of folks have been talking about today, the 250th American birthday celebration coming up. It's not like the list of performers were all top tier A-list performers. I don't have a problem with any of the performers on the list, although, again, not a big fan of Flo Rida. But outside of that, I'm young enough to remember before Milli Vanilli was caught up in their lip sync scandal.
But isn't that just another example where, it's the celebration of our country, but you're being attacked because you were perceived to have been asked by the wrong side or the wrong person or the wrong party. And if you just flipped it and the other party was in control, then people would be fighting over participating. And that's where we are right now. I mean, that's one of the ways, like I said, that the far left activists try to keep people in line. They scare off candidates and then they attack you if you do something for them to honor them or, the right. And so, I think the country's had enough of it. You can start to see more and more of that. And I think the election that we just had the runoff election that we just had in Texas between Paxton and Cornyn is a good example of that. Cornyn has always been considered a moderate. Paxton has always been considered a conservative. And so when you get Paxton and Cornyn into a runoff on the Republican side, a runoff in Texas is going to favor the conservative. And then on top of that, Trump endorsed Paxton the second day of early voting, and it turned into a bloodbath. I mean, I was looking at the difference in votes. I mean, Cornyn had like 400,000 fewer votes than in the primary. Paxton had 20-something thousand fewer votes than in the primary. And so Cornyn's people didn't come out to vote. And that's pretty much what happens in Texas in a runoff. The moderates don't care. The conservatives do.
Yeah. The moderates figure they've already showed up to vote once, and they'll show up again in November because that's all they're mandated to do. I mean, it is insane when you see the kind of pressure that's put on individuals. And again, that is that's kind of been seeping into our judicial system, both attorneys and judges alike. Some of them have gleefully, willingly picked a side, maybe because of funding sources for elections for DAs, or maybe just because their family members work for prominent activists or what have you. But again, if we can't get back to the basic fundamentals of law and order, if we can't get back to, if you'll forgive the sports terminology, to just block and tackle, if we can't get back to that, it's going to be a long, hard road, and there's still going to be a lot of innocent people who are needlessly hurt as a result. And your stance is that bail reform is a great first step towards getting things back in order, right?
Well, I think calling out bad bail reform and then rolling it back. I mean, Texas has done a really good job on their bail reform because their bail reform has strengthened the criminal justice system. And so we've limited the use of these simple release mechanisms. And so I think there's a difference between, bad bail reform in our soft on crime urban areas and our soft on crime states and bail reform that's intended to strengthen and add increase in accountability on the system. So I think, but the point I would make is what they're doing in the soft on crime areas is not sustainable. And when you see a soft on crime DA get elected, they have a short shelf life. They only last 1 or 2 terms, and then they get defeated, and they usually get replaced with a law and order DA. And so I'm very hopeful, and I'm very hopeful for the future, because even though we're continuing to fight this fight, in the areas where they have tried it, it's been terrible, it's been devastating, and they've rolled it back. And so because it's not sustainable, I'm very hopeful for the future.
Well, Ken, again, I want to thank you so very much for joining us tonight and helping folks to better understand what we are talking about in this situation, and helping to really push forward how important this is. If you have any other final thoughts you'd like to share, feel free to do that. If there's any websites you want to throw out, now's a great time too. And if you invite people to follow you anywhere on social media, you're welcome to share handles and platforms as well. Basically, the microphone is yours. Just to say what you feel like you need to say before we wrap up.
Well, thank you. And if people want more information about me or my group, you can go to pbtx.com, the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. We have our blog where we highlight important criminal justice stories. We also have our own podcast. There's a link on our menu, or you can just go directly to thebellpost.com. All we do is talk about criminal justice issues, what works, what does not work. And, the scary thing is you'll hear in the news things like, we need to defund the police. And, we'll be safer once we defund the police. And AOC still says that to this day. The problem is the science on this is settled. And the science on this says when you defund the police, crime goes up substantially where you've taken away police officers. And the murder rate especially goes up. And who gets impacted the most by that? Our minorities, are Black young men, because 50% of all murders right now are young Black men, and they're usually committed by young Black men. And so they're arguing for one thing, but the problem is the reality is the exact opposite. So again, politics is invading the criminal justice system at a level we've never seen, and it just is, and they're saying things that are just not true. And so we need to navigate what works, what doesn't work, get past the rhetoric, be able to pick it apart and respond to it.
Absolutely. Again, this is why you are one of those leading voices for common sense and the reform. And that's why I would love to have you come back a little more frequently than the gaps that we have, at least once every 3 months or so, minimum. Ken, again, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I appreciate you coming in. Godspeed to you, sir. Keep up all the great work.
Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.